For those of you who've been following the news in Ghana today, we are told that Ghana overall ranked number 7 as the best performing government in Africa, according to the Mo Ibrahim Index on Governance in Africa. It's mainly based on 4 indicators in these areas. 1, safety and rule of law. 2, participation in human rights. 3, sustainable economic opportunity. And 4, human development. During the course of the program, I'll break these down for you and tell you which areas each of these indicators actually looked at. So Ghana's total score was 66 over 100 marks, judged the second best behind Chad in West Africa. That is West Africa, but in the whole of Africa, number 7. When we break it down, you'll find that a position on safety and rule of law out of the 53 countries or so, Ghana scored 72 marks, placing 6th on the African continent, and 4th on participation in human rights with marks of 69. Ghana also ranked 16th and 12th, respectively, on sustainable economic opportunity and human development with 70 marks, respectively, as we have been saying. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the Mo Ibrahim Index. Indeed, I think that's what we discussed on a very maiden edition of PM Express a lot of months ago, on how it works and how the data is collected and all of that. So really, what does it mean for Ghana to rank number 7? And it has been said that a lot of the top oil producing countries, the giants, did not feature in the top rankings. Is there a reason for that? Perhaps if we have time, we'll look at that issue and see how that fits into it. But of course, I'm sure you also have your views on the matter, and we'll be happy to have them. 1760 by text across all mobile networks. If you're on Facebook, it's facebook.com/multi-TV PM Express. So Ghana ranks number 7 on the most governance rankings. That is our discussion tonight. In the studio with me, on my immediate left, I have from CDD, Edward Foucault Aprechum. He's a researcher at CDD, as I said. And also next to him is Nana Kofi Opong Damoa, a member of the MPP communications team. Thank you for coming, gentlemen. We spoke to Honorable Mahama Ayariga, who promised to be here. We are still expecting him. He's Deputy Minister of Education. We hope to be joined by him sometime during the show. But of course, we go straight to action, and I'd like to begin with a researcher from CDD for him to give us a researcher's perspective on what this index really is about and what it says. In looking at the summary, I actually see that there's reference to CDD and the Afrobarometer, which CDD has been conducting. I'm sure you are actively involved in collecting data and analyzing this on this one. What does it mean to say that Ghana is ranked number 7 as the best performing government in Africa in the areas that I mentioned?
Thank you. Before we go ahead, I want to correct one misrepresentation or wrong information that I saw across the networks today. By the fact that Ghana ranks, internet? Yeah, Ghana ranks 2nd, okay, behind Chad.
Okay, because that's what we also saw.
No, that's actually wrong information. Ghana ranks 2nd behind Cape Verde in West Africa.
Cape Verde?
Yes.
Cape Verde?
Yes, Cape Verde.
Yes.
Where Ghana ranks.
That's right.
In West Africa. Because Chad is actually 52nd. So to be presenting that information about Chad,
you're absolutely
would
right,
make them feel too good.
Because Cape Verde is actually number 2 in the total ranking.
Yes.
So it's the only country in West Africa ahead of Ghana. So that's a very important intervention. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Chad is way behind the 52. That would have been shocking, really.
Exactly.
Because that was really going to be one of the questions for you as to how authentic and credible then this is if a country like Chad,
I sought to correct that,
which is practically a failed state in some people's analysis.
Well, that's a very big word.
All right. All right. Okay, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
But in dealing with the matter, what does it really mean? How did you assess all of that? And really, number 7, what does it mean for Ghana?
Yes. Before I go ahead to that, I would say that the index and most governance indicators, what they seek to do is to assess the quality of life of people.
Okay.
In terms of the provision of services for and goods by governments and non-state actors. So that's what the Mo Ibrahim Index is trying to do. It's only trying to give us pointers to how governments and non-state actors provide services for people in a state. In the case of Ghana, based on the indicators, the 4 key indicators which you mentioned earlier on safety and rule of law, on participation in human rights, sustainable economic opportunity, and human development. And these are made up of 14 solid categories, subcategories. And within them, are a total, or we can say the total of about 86 indicators. So it's not just you performing, it's a consolidation of sub indicators all over before Ghana can be ranked at that level.
Okay.
So when we look at where our safety of, and rule of law is, our human development, our sustainable economic opportunity, etc., then we can be said to be ranked at this stage. But of course, when we go further in this discussion, we'll see that this block that we're giving Ghana masks a lot of things that lies within. And that is, as they say, the devil is the detail. And we'll be happy to go into the detail so that we would see where we're doing better and where we need to consolidate and where we need to improve.
Okay, that's very important, as you say. So the overall score of 7 doesn't close everything. But of course, as I said in my introduction, I also give the individual ranking for the 4 areas. And the West was, is it 16th or so for Ghana. But just so to help set the tone and for the viewers to understand what we're talking about, when you speak about safety and rule of law, these are the 4 areas.
Yes.
Rule of law in itself,
yes.
Accountability, personal safety, and national security. That's what we are looking at when we deal with this. And so let me look at the individual scores again, so that as you send your text messages to us, they will be informed and they will be based on the scores itself that we have here for your understanding and appreciation. So safety and rule of law, as we have said, is these 4 areas that I've just mentioned. And there are many other areas under it. You can't mention all, but just basically the judiciary, independence, accountability, political persecutions, social unrest, cross-border tensions, etc. will come under this. For participation and human rights. So are you able to, should we probably be mentioning the rank as and when I talk about this? Safety and rule of law, Ghana scored 6th on the African continent. Yes. So that's it. For participation and human rights, we are talking about participation having to do with free and fair elections, etc., political participation and all that. Rights generally, and then gender. These are the 3 areas of participation and human rights. Is that right? And for participation in human rights, Ghana placed 4th, if I am correct. So the first is 6th, the second is 4th.
The West is sustainable economic opportunity.
Absolutely. And so that's where we are going next for the 4 areas. Is that?
That was 16th. Sustainable economic opportunity.
Yeah,
I haven't mentioned that yet.
That's 16th.
Okay. That's where I'm going next. So that was 6th and 4th. I'm going to that one next. So sustainable economic opportunity is public management, where we're talking about statistical administration, capacity, public administration, inflation, diversification, reserves, budget management, and things like that. And then business environment, infrastructure, and the rural sector. And this will do with competitive environment, access to electricity, road and rail network, air transport, IT, public resources for rural development, and all that. And in that area, Ghana placed 16th out of the 53. And the final area is human development, and it has 3 areas or pointers or indicators: welfare, education, and health. And under welfare, we're talking about social protection and labor, access to water, access to sanitation, environmental policy, and some others. Education, I'm sure we can all put our mind to it. And health, maternal mortality, child mortality, immunization, measles, etc. And in that area, Ghana placed 12th. So in that order, it is 6th, 4th, 16th, and 12th. Our best performance, the 4th, was in participation in human rights. Our worst performance, which is sustainable economic opportunity, was number 16. Yeah. I think that is, pardon me for perhaps taking a bit of your time, but I thought it was important for our viewers to get a flow and understand what we are talking about. So let me then cross over to the other side of the table, get the MPP perspective on matters, Nana Kofi, and ask you, what do you make of it?
The first point I would want to say is that, Ghana being 7th is good news to an extent, but generally, as the point has been made, it is not a reflection of the entirety of the position of Ghana on some of these matters. As well, I think it is very important for the point to be made that Ghana has oftentimes placed 7th on the Mo Ibrahim Index. I mean, from 2000 to 2010, when you look at it, I think that I saw that we placed 8th just once. Depending on which kind of figures you're looking at, it may actually be higher than this 66, depending, I say again, on the kind of figures and statistics that you're looking at. But in general, Ghana placing 7th is news, but it's no news. From our standpoint, it's news, but it's no news. Because yes, we're doing well, but we've been too stagnant. at the 7th position for a while. It's about time we began to see some improvement in our standings in the Mo Ibrahim Index.
What's the best performance Ghana has scored?
7th.
7th.
That's from what I can see, from what I've researched. 7th.
It's 7th. And how many years has this been done for? So
the ranking is from 2000
to 2012.
Yeah.
And he has
2011.
2011, sorry, that's the current one. And it's been done on an annual basis.
Yes.
Since then. And the best we've scored is the 7th.
Yes.
What's the worst we've scored?
8th.
I think it's 8th.
Do you remember when?
That was 2007, 2008. I'm not very sure. It's one of those years.
Okay, 2007, 2008, thereabout.
Yeah.
So basically what you are saying to me is that Ghana is just hovering in the same area.
Since 2000.
Since 2000, in the same area.
Yes.
And for what, 11 yeyears, a whole decade? And that's
Depending
what
on
you
the
say.
kind of statistics you're looking at, because there is this review that has been done by Africapedia, which is a website for reviewing statistics and facts about Ghana. And if you look at it critically, their figures would give you a graph that looks like this.
Okay, I'm sure the camera can capture it at some
Gives
point.
you a graph that looks like this.
Yes.
Which shows that in 2007, we actually reached 66.8.
Okay.
In 2008, despite all the corruption allegations and everything that were made, Ghana actually got to 70.1. And then in 2008, we fell to 66. 2010, we fell to 65. And now we are back at 66. But these figures are revised. If you look at the original figures that were given, they will be slightly lower. So we've been there. We are there. We are stagnant. I mean, if your child goes to school and every term you keep on getting a report and he's 7th, and there's a lot of potential for increase, because when you look at the details, and as he has said, the devil is in the details. When you look at the details, there are various areas in which we can improve. Then you get the feeling that there's a whole lot more that can be done. There's a whole lot more that can be done.
Okay.
But in contributing to the discussion about Ghana being 7th for a very long time, and 7th and 8th and 7th and 8th, as we can see from this document, it's important to say that governance issues or governance indicators change over time. The very slow process. If you look at the way the indicators are calibrated year on, they don't just happen like that. So normally what we do is to do a 5-year analysis of the index.
Okay.
So that is where we would get more, we'll get a better understanding of what is happening in the case of Ghana than just to say that we're not moving. I get concerned as a researcher that we're not breaking into the ranks of the 3rd and the 4th. Because sitting at the 7th and 8th is not good enough, but we need to break into the ranks. But what will it take us to get there?
Maybe you should answer that question for us.
Should be interested.
Because what are we not doing right? That's a researcher. What is it that Ghana is doing that has probably kept us wearing a particular jersey number? I know we are identified with a jersey number, and the jersey number is number 7. And on an occasion, maybe a senior player pops up and we have to wear number 8 or so. But basically, that's our number. We are registered with it. What is it that makes it so difficult for us to exceed or go beyond some countries? And I'm trying to see those ahead of us. Of course, Cape Verde is number 2. Mauritius is on top of us. Botswana
is one of them.
Yeah.
What can make the difference for Ghana is to look at where exactly we are not doing well. And that's the area of sustainable economic opportunity. And especially in the area of infrastructure, where we rank like 29th. Then we need to be thinking again about what we are doing in there. Again, in the area of public management, we do not do so well. Okay, so we need to address exactly the areas within the index where we are not performing well, and then consolidate those ones we are doing well. That
maybe
for me should be
maybe to make it easier for all of us, let's begin to take it one by one. Let's go block by block, and let's begin, as you say, with where the performance isn't the greatest. As you said, ranking 16th in sustainable economic opportunity. Sustainable economic is not really a great thing. How does that compare? Before I ask you a direct question on that, how have we fared over time? Have we done better arriving at 16? Have we gone worse at 16, or we've just been going up and down?
If you look at the indicators, and I'm going to do a 5-year analysis.
Yes.
And actually, I have quite an interesting graph here. Where in 5 years, what we are doing is we're showing a positive progression in the area of sustainable economic opportunity. Over a 5-year period, you can say that at least with, you can see a difference of about 1.5 over time.
Positive?
Yeah, positive.
Okay.
Okay, but there are areas where we're showing negatives. And that for me, it's of concern.
Just mention them for us.
For instance, in the area of rule of law, we're falling back. So if you take a look at the graph over 5 years, this is how the graph will look like. Okay,
I see.
So for me as a researcher, I'm interested in why we're falling in the area of safety and rule of law, why we are falling in the area of participation in human rights, where we are supposed to be doing better, because that is our best area in the whole index. So we should be consolidating where we're known to be doing better, and then trying to do better in the areas we are not. And sustainable economic opportunity, saying that currently we are doing quite well. Human development especially, we're recording very good gains.
Okay.
Okay, over a 5-year period, we've got a positive of about 6.2. And for me, that is good.
Okay. So generally, it's good for you over the period, over the 5-year period. It looks quite okay.
In sustainable economic opportunity and human development. But there are threats in the area of safety and rule of law and participation in human rights. And I'm concerned because that is where we are known to be doing better.
But I want to stay with sustainable economic opportunity for now, which is looking at public management. I mean, let's mention the things again. We are talking about statistical capacity, and for now, I'm going over to Nana Kofi. Nana, statistical capacity, public administration, inflation, diversification, reserves, budget management, ratio of total revenue to total expenditure, debt management, ratio of external debt service to exports, reliability of financial institutions. I mean, these are critical matters. Budget management, how competitive is our environment for business, investment climate, rural financial services, bureaucracy and red tape, access to electricity, road network, air transport, telephone and IT infrastructure, digital connectivity, public resources, land and water for low income. I mean, these are a number of things. We are ranking 16 in this area. We are talking about 53 countries. What is the picture with these areas I have mentioned? I mean,
I would want to begin from a point. Okay, Dr. Bawumia in his lecture made a very critical point that you cannot run an economy on propaganda, and I think it's very key that we get Ghanaians to understand that fact. These things coming from not a political actor within the Ghanaian context, but coming from an external party, the Mo Ibrahim Index, with contributions from various sources, are beginning to make a particular point, which is very
looking at the Mo Ibrahim Index and discussing Ghana's ranking. You're making the points before we had to take that break. Proceed with it.
Okay. I was making a point about propaganda and the fact that it is very important that we run an economy based on facts, not just propaganda. Dr. Bawumia very lucidly made a point in his lecture that we cannot run an economy on propaganda. And these set of facts that are coming from the Mo Ibrahim Index, seem to consolidate his opinion on some of these matters. For instance, I mean, but the publication of the Green Book 1 and 2 and all of these things that we're hearing, it's very surprising that some of these facts are coming out. And I would state some of them just for the benefit of our viewers. Under public management, Ghana scored 26th. With an average score of 57.2, we are worse than Cameroon, Uganda, and Libya. Now, it's very important that we notice these things because Libya over the last year has been going through war situation and all of that, and we did worse than them. In statistical capacity, Ghana was 12th with a score of 66.2. With inflation, with all the trumpeting of unprecedented achievement in terms of single-digit inflation, and all, Ghana was 42nd in Africa with a record of 76.4. Diversification of the economy, actually, we were 35th in Africa with a score of 3.8. With foreign reserves,
you're on the indicators, right?
I'm on the indicators, actual indicators themselves. With foreign reserves, we were 33rd, 22.4 out of 100 marks. With budget management, we were 9th. With the ratio of revenue to total expenditure, Ghana was 46th in Africa with 3.1. Only better than Nigeria, Niger, Guinea, Chad, Swaziland, and the Central African Republic. All other countries in Africa were better than us. Ratio of budget deficit to GDP were 43rd, 34.3 out of 100. With debt management, were 20th. Business environment was 68.3. In terms of infrastructure, Ghana was 29th, scoring 27.9. And then with rural sector, we're 21st. Some of these things are quite worrying. When you look at the Human Development Index as a whole, Ghana was 21st and the 21st, And then with health as well, we're 21st. So when these things come out, after we are hearing of unprecedented achievements in terms of building of roads and schools, and we are hearing all these things, then it comes as a shock to the Ghanaian people. And that's where the problem is. For me, we must seek to tell the people the truth at all cost. It's very important because it's the individuals in the country, it's the taxpayers who are contributing their resources, hard-earned resources. Some KIA are being made to pay tickets and all of that to allow government to raise funds to run the country. We deserve to know the truth. Now what's happening is that we are being told that yes, Ghana is 7th across board. And that is a picture, as we have all identified here clearly. But the devil lies in the details. Even in terms of where Ghana did very well, we have a very serious concern, which must be made clear. The judicial process, and they define it as the extent to which the judicial process and courts are subject to interference by interest groups. Ghana was 4th with 66.7.
And the rule of law.
Yeah. And then with judicial independence, that is where real independence of the judiciary in their work, Ghana was 2nd with 87.5. So what you realize is that there were certain sectors of the Ghanaian governance system that did very well, that compensated for the sectors of the Ghanaian economy that were not doing very well. My personal issue with this is that we've seen the judiciary being bastardized. It's been under attack for a lot of the time. They are corrupt, they are this, they're coming from very serious quarters, national chairman of political parties and all of that. But it is the judiciary that actually is the saving grace of Ghana in this index. When you look at accountability, for instance, with accountability, corruption, and transparency in rural areas, Ghana was 29th, 44.2. And we actually had minus 11 in the ranking. When you look at accountability of public officials, Ghana was 11th. We are ranked the same as Nigeria, Liberia, Sudan, Cote d'Ivoire, Rwanda, and Sierra Leone. Corruption in government, public officials, Ghana was 9th. We are ranked the same as Rwanda and Seychelles. And the point again is that, you know, we must be told the truth. We must be told the truth because these figures come as a shock to any keen observer of Ghanaian politics in recent times, especially with the rosy picture that's being painted. Ghana is 7th, and immediately we have people jumping on the bandwagon asking for praises of the government to be sung, and anybody who attempts to criticize is taken to the cleaners. But these are not coming from the NPP. These are not coming from any political party in Ghana. These are clear researches. And it's important to also know that the government has seemingly endorsed this report. It's been carried all over the news, and various spokespersons have commented on it, and they seem to have lent their support on it. They are using this same report as something that gives credence to the good governance and better Ghana agenda. But these are the facts.
But definitely, as you look at the places where you say performance hasn't been the best, there also has to be places where performance has been fantastic. Because I realized that I was going along with you as you jumped, and you picked a few places where it wasn't great, and I'm happy you bring it to light. But I'm sure there must be places where we also should be quite proud of ourselves. Edward, wouldn't that be the case?
Obviously. And I still need to reiterate the point that governance issues or governance changes over time. It's a longer term process. It's so we should maybe move away a bit from the focusing on the individual administration issues. It's a Ghana thing that is being done over time. What are we achieving in the next 10 years? What are we achieving in the next 5 years based on the index? So that when we are looking at the analysis, that is helpful. We've done from the analysis. So even in the 2011 index alone, we're still doing quite well, and we're still doing well in participation in human rights, on human development areas, especially in the areas of education and welfare. We're doing very well or quite well. There are still particular areas within these index that are that are a challenge to us. Again, in the area of maternal mortality, we still have to look at that side. When we go even back to the area of participation in human rights, particularly in the area of gender, we do not rank well at all in Africa.
Where do we rank?
17th.
Okay.
Because
that has been quite an issue and something we've been discussing quite a bit on this program.
And we
talking about women's participation in the labor force, women's participation in education.
On gender in Africa.
Right.
Okay. So for us, we're doing well in some of these areas, but there are critical points that we cannot close our eyes to. If we need to do the movement over time, then we need to address some of these deficits. How many women get elected in the local government processes? How many women get into parliament? How many women are appointed on boards? How many women get into public positions? All these things are important.
Right. Right. So that's also quite an issue for us.
Nearly, I think that a point needs to be made. I don't know if I did not make that point sufficiently clear. We are actually progressing in certain areas.
Okay. Of course, you mentioned judicial independence.
My problem is the fact that it looks as though in the areas where we are progressing, there is a deliberate attempt being made to portray Ghana as actually retrogressing.
By who?
Good question. I would not want to, engage in too much of the politicking, and so I'll leave it for all objective observers to take a critical look. But the recent,
but people will be happy to know. People would like to know who is making us look.
We all know who said that the judiciary was corrupt, and so one party was going to take it upon itself to clean up the judiciary, and that there are many ways of killing a cat. There are people who decided to, say that Ghana's judiciary is ineffective, and so they will have to take certain cases to the ICC. We've heard a lot of things. Some 4 individuals associated to a particular party were also taken on by the judicial service for 1 or 2 things that they may have said. These are worrisome developments. Over time, what that will do is that it will actually translate into the bringing down of the confidence in these processes, and will actually do worse. Also, note must be taken that there's a certain development that is quietly creeping into the system. We are doing worse in that area. For example, when you look at something that is called political terror and safety and rule of law, personal safety, we must notice something, that Ghana actually ranked, under personal safety, Ghana actually ranked 17th with a mark of 52.5.
You call that political what?
No, I'm looking at personal safety, and under personal safety you find something called political terror.
Yeah.
Political terror.
Yeah.
Okay.
Political terror. Now the definition of that. Here. The definition of that.
I have only is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have under personal safety. There's domestic political persecution. There's social unrest, safety of the person, violent crime, and human trafficking.
There's political terror missing from that.
Yeah, that's missing.
Okay, then there's political terror from the summary.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's political terror missing.
What does that refer to?
The definition of political terror is how the state and state actors actually use state powers to terrorize individuals for their beliefs and all of that.
Okay.
Interestingly, Ghana ranked 16th, the same as Liberia, Congo, and Togo. We're actually worse than Sierra Leone and Burkina Faso, which is very interesting. On the personal safety, Ghana had a mark of 52.5. 17th, Sierra Leone was actually better than Ghana. With this recent spate of activities where for anything that is done or said by one individual or the other, you're immediately arrested for causing fear and panic and things of the sort. This is the result.
So what's your conclusion on safety and rule of law generally for Ghana before we move away from there?
I would say that there have been positives. Those positives, unfortunately, have been around for quite a very long time. The negatives are creeping in, and we must watch those negatives. In my view, they are unnecessary negatives. Things caused about by, a lot of the times out of emotion and the desire to protect political gains. It's not doing the country Ghana any good. If we are being noted for social unrest, violent social unrest, and we are ranking 50, I mean the raw mark is 50 for that. Safety of the person is 50 for that. Violent crime is 50 for that. Human trafficking, Ghana actually scored 50 in some of these areas. Traditionally, and this is not just over a year or two, but it's been there for a long time. Why the need to increase political terror to 16th? And so most of these things could have been avoided.
So the question is now who caused them, as we say in local parlance. Will you venture an answer to that?
It's clear. The answer is clear. It's in the public, For me, I'll repeat the points I've been making all along, that some of these things are highly unnecessary. Highly unnecessary, especially with the point of political terror, causing fear and panic. And most often, interestingly, what happens is individuals are arrested, charged with causing fear and panic. About, 3/4 of those cases do not even find their way to court.
So you're saying that it's the government who has caused that?
That's causing all of these things. We need to be a little bit, cool heads must prevail.
I know that Edward really sometimes doesn't want to go that path, because that's a politician speaking.
Yes.
And to a researcher's mind, really, again, the question will be to you, is this a fair reflection? Because he seems to have broken it down quite well for us in terms of what percentages we've scored in all those places, gone down to the subcategories and indicators and all of that. And those really, for the kind of people who watch programs like this, should be the issue of concern.
Yeah.
Because like you said, they're just a big band does not really show much. In places like judicial process, judicial independence, etc., fine, you say we are doing great and all of that. But some say that out of 53 countries, if what we see, and not just based on the current government, but if what we've seen over time in Ghana, the nature of our roads, railway network, virtually non-existent. Look at the educational system in so many places apart from the heart of the country, and even in the heart there are issues and all. And all of that put together, which we cry about every day, which we've been crying about for years under different governmental regimes, would place us in a place like number 7 out of 53. Then Africa in itself needs to have some teardrops falling in its way. It's very heart-rending for many. If we were to do a world analysis with this, where will Ghana place?
Thank you. I think that is a very interesting point to make, that when we're comparing ourselves to dwarfs,
yeah,
then this is where we are.
Right.
And again, yesterday we had the opportunity of trying to compare this data with Revenue Watch Index on Transparency and Accountability. And there the correlations were quite interesting, where, or even across this very data, where if we take Ghana and then place it against oil producing countries, which maybe we may discuss towards the end,
absolutely,
you'll see that largely Ghana is doing better than them. Okay, so when you place yourself among the dwarfs, that's fine, you may be doing better. But as we keep saying, there's a lot of things that go into this data, and the data is giving us an indicator of what things should look like, or what things look like. There is not an exact thing of what is happening on the ground, and some of the things captured in the data are not things that happened now or happened like just a year ago or something. So that we must be mindful of. Of course, there's paucity of data issues, and that is why, for instance, the foundation is trying to get on board the Afrobarometer, which gets public opinion data to infuse into this data. That will give us a more like a clearer view of what happens in the everyday life, okay, to support the secondary data that's aggregated into this, okay. Because if we just take what is here and just oppose it against what is currently happening in our country, we may be probably presenting data in the wrong way. Okay, for me, that is important. But
I wonder how well we
again,
did with statistical capacity. Just on your point, and I'll let you continue. Statistical capacity, for example, under public management, and generally the picture isn't very great, is it?
Yes.
It's not. And yet, that is the, like you say, to develop your point, it forms the basis of getting the information out of Ghana.
Good.
So, with the paucity or depth of statistical capacity, as you say, how really reflective then would what is fished out of Ghana for an analysis with us against other African countries be a true reflection of what is happening in our country if we don't even have the statistics? We don't know the number of people who work. In fact, we don't know the number of job openings there are in this country. We don't, do we?
No.
We don't. We watch CNN every day, for example, we say that the US economy created this number of jobs this year or that. And not just the US, so many countries around the world. We don't know that. We don't know who is working. We don't know who is not working. And how then do we determine easily whether we are really sustaining economic opportunity in this manner or in that manner? Sometimes isn't there a gap that leaves us wondering whether these conclusions really reflects the true picture?
Yes, as I stated earlier, these indicators or these governance indicators only give us pointers. They may not tell us the actual on the ground, but at least they give us a pointer as to what may be happening or what is happening. Okay, what we have here in the Mo Ibrahim Index is a lot of an aggregation of a lot of secondary data from all sources, including CDD, where we calibrate, for instance, the index on sanctions, and I'm personally responsible for that.
Okay.
So we aggregate all of this secondary data, and then we bunch it up together, up to the higher level of these 4 main categories, and then it comes up to this. What it seeks to do is to, at least, we have this example of a pilot without a navigation stuff. Okay,
right.
This data is supposed to give you some information that can help you at least identify where you are. That is the basis. Statistical data in Africa and we cannot even narrow it to Ghana and say, in Africa in general, is very poor. And so we're making do with what we have to get an idea of the sense of what is there. And as I said, the Afrobarometer coming on board in this index will give us what ordinary people, what public opinion is on some of these issues. Issues on judicial corruption, issues on perception of the political terror, etc. Some of these things are captured in the Afrobarometer. So it would give us very good information that we can at least help to present a clearer picture than what we have now.
So you think that statistically there's a lot of challenge?
Yes, there is a lot.
There's a lot of challenge, and that may be an issue. Look at infrastructure, access to electricity. Many people will tell you their view. For last year, I'm not talking about this year and all the issues it has had. Road and rail network, air transport facilities, telephone and IT infrastructure, digital connectivity. Generally, how did we score? It wasn't great. You're giving us some breakdowns for that.
Overall, with infrastructure, Ghana was 29th with an average mark of 27.9 out of 100, which is very worrisome.
It is absolutely worrisome.
And
what was the position? 29th?
Yeah.
Out of 53,
yes,
we still performed up over and above half. We're in the top half bracket.
But
with this 29%.
Yeah, but
no, we're actually in the lower half.
Are
59,
we?
53.
63?
No, 53.
Oh, 53.
So we're in
53.
the lower half.
We're in the lower half. Okay.
Yeah. Now the issue here is, when you look at the figures again,
yes,
you realize two major, very troublesome things that are beginning to happen. You realize that the Ghanaian electorate is beginning to suffer from the phenomenon of apoliticization. And then there are very worrying signs about the Dutch disease. Let me take this one by one. When you look at participation, political participation, Ghana was 10th with a mark of 64.3.
Yes.
Now this is interesting because we're the first black African country to become independent. We were amongst the first to have elections. And so you expect that 50 plus years after the practice of democracy, political participation should be higher than 64.3 as it is. This tells us therefore that the electorate are beginning to get bored with the political system. The danger is that with apoliticization, at a point, the citizenry will begin not to believe in the political system. And so there's this apathy, there's this aloofness. Anytime you've heard somebody make the point that I'm not going to vote because all politicians are the same, I'm not going to vote because politicians lie, that is the phenomenon of apoliticization showing itself. And in the Mo Ibrahim Index, it is beginning to show clearly 64.3, and over time we're actually declining in political participation. That's a point of worry. Again, with the Dutch disease, I'll take you to sustainable economic opportunity. You look at diversification under that. We scored a paltry 3.8 out of 100. And this 3.8, when you look at the statistics again, is actually because of the coming on stream of oil. That's the fact. And we scored 3.8 out of 100.
You agree with that?
no.
Okay, let him finish. And
we scored 3.8 out of 100. We're 35th in Africa. Now that gives very worrying signals as well. When you look at the statistics that came even from the Ghana Statistical Service, you realize that certain sectors were growing by negatives, which shows us that those sectors of the economy are contracting. We are beginning to concentrate more on the new emerging oil, and then we are sitting back on the traditional sectors of the economy. That's worrisome. We've been producing oil for just about a year. So if you are beginning to show symptoms of the Dutch disease after just a year of oil production, these are serious issues that we must look at if we are serious about national development.
Okay.
The danger, however, is that for propaganda purposes, you see people rushing onto the bandwagon. Ghana is the and the headlines are very troublesome. Ghana is the 7th best economy in Africa. That paints a particular picture. But in this scenario, I would liken it to an uncompleted building. The outside, the exterior has been fitted with all the glasses. Everything looks perfect on the outside. You walk inside, you realize that the roof is leaking. There are puddles of water everywhere. That's what we are beginning to see.
Okay, let's take his reaction, because I think there was a specific area where you said you disagreed before we go for a commercial break.
Yes, our scores on diversification, etc. I need to clarify that some of these things, the data that is there, it's not like yesterday's data, as in the most current data that shows that because we got oil and before we didn't diversify in oil because we are concentrating more on oil. It's not like that. The data doesn't speak like that. As I keep repeating, it's a longer term stream of things. But I agree with him that we are showing signs of, we are showing trends or in areas where oil producing countries do better, we're moving away from our comfort zone to join or to portray what oil producing countries do. And that for me is worrying, because if I look at the 5-year trends that I have here, and then I'm seeing that Ghana, which is traditionally known on the index to be doing better on safety and rule of law and participation, but when I take a 5-year analysis, I see that there is a decline in that sector. And then when they do better on sustainable economic opportunity and human development over a 5-year period, then it's worrying, because that is where the oil producing countries do better. So we need to begin to protect where we are known to be doing better, and also then try to use our additional resources to help us sustain or do better in sustainable economic opportunity and human development.
Interesting. We have to take a quick commercial break at this stage. We'll start taking your text messages. I have quite a number of them here, and then we'll deal with all of that. Of course, we'll continue the discussion about the oil producing countries and how come those of them in Africa did not really rank in the top 10, the reason thereof, and also what we can do really as a country so we don't get into that. Of course, the discussion in that direction has already started. It's a quick break. We'll be right back.
Listen, a bunch of money that came and Missima, the Shala should be number 12, so bring you. I was not to kill the young baby, and I will say, but it's in a day, my boy, what did I do? The kind of gap for the old school union, Linda, my baby. You said the lady of the Probia Soma. I shall win up about the young one.
More Alamo regular, then more Alamo cocktails. Alamo and
Aloko.
Alamo and nine.
Alone.
Alamo and gin.
Allergy. Masa, you get taste.
Alombo Bitters, authentic African herbal bitters. Drink responsibly.
Hello gentlemen, I need this document processed for me. It's quite urgent. Can I have it in 2 days?
Sorry madam, that will take 2 weeks. It's a standard working procedure of the written test, the medicals.
Blah blah blah. I know. I need it badly. Can you get it for me please? In 3 days?
Madam, I said 2 weeks. Corruption Barney. What do I do?
Blow the whistle. ALAC is the Advocacy and Legal Advice Center of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. It is set up to receive complaints and provide assistance to victims and witnesses of corruption in Ghana. ALAC provides the platform to link the complainant to the appropriate institution for redress. Report corruption now. Call ALAC on toll-free number 0800 100 25.
For staying with us, I have 10 minutes to go. I need to bring to your attention quickly. I'm sure some of you joined us quite late and you'll be wondering why you see the MPP on the show and there's no NDC. Reason is that Honorable Mahama Ayariga, Deputy Minister for Education, actually agreed to be with us on the show. Somehow he's not been able to show up. We haven't found the reason why. We're calling his phone. It's ringing, but he's not answering. I'm sure there's something has come up, but I don't have the exact basis for that. I can't tell you, but I have to assure you that we actually did invite him and he agreed to come before the show, and that's the reason we are doing this. But of course, this is an analysis of the issues, and that's why we also have our researcher Edward Foko Prechum to help us with the analysis in the studio. Your messages are in. Let's take a few of them. Madam Supremo says Ghana being ranked 7th best performing government in Africa or whatever isn't my priority as a Ghanaian. The good people of this country deserve better. Politicians as a whole must care and consider the ordinary person on the street and desist from the selfish interest and the lifestyle of property owning democracy. Apia Eric, look at this. How can Ghana be ranked 7th? Help me. I will make national health insurance one-time premium, reduce petrol drastically. These were the president's promises to us, but I haven't seen them. Are we suffering? We the poor understand how he feels. It says we are suffering. We the poor understand how he feels. All right, Anamala Umar Kabo says Mo Ibrahim Index should come again. They had it all wrong. Rule of law and sustainable economy, they mean? Well, that's your question. The next one is from Ismaila Ibrahim Ahin. Oh, thanks, Mo Ibrahim. It's a perfect reflection, and we, those who have eyes and eyes to see, are really seeing and feeling. What an achievement. Better Ghana indeed. Ken Erudite says, wow, I'm for them. They really deserve it. And then he goes on to say, I love multi-TV, is the best. Thank you. We love you too. Nicholas Domanumbo says, some marking schemes are student-friendly. A general ranking shows how poorly the whole of the African continent is performing. There is nothing to celebrate. Babakaka says, that's good to hear. That surely tells you how Better Ghana has moved far. We still believe in Better Ghana than free senior higher education. Okay, Zlatan Dokarito Gadeka says, do they really think that they deserve it, or they have brought it to brainwash us due to the upcoming election? No problem, we are watching their back. Kojo Oscar, what criteria did they use for the ranking? Who told them that our economy is stable, the city is losing its value, high rate of unemployment, increase in price of goods and services? They should give us a break. To be fair, this was 2011. Nicholas Domanumbo, he says, folks, let's not reduce this to NDC and NPP. If Ghana, our motherland, is the 7th in Africa, can we find our position in the global village? A clear indication that we have a long way to go. Brian Adimi says, the sky is not even a limit. I am proud to be a Ghanaian. Everything cannot get done overnight, but indicators are showing strong hope. Amowi Kobikan Nyako, I really don't understand the criteria for this ranking. We should ask ourselves, are we feeling the Better Ghana agenda? I believe it's a big no, so I don't think this ranking is reflecting in our pocket. Lego One says, wow, that's a true reflection of the Better Ghana agenda. All ministerial works have been duly administered unprecedentedly. Mills is a yard away from the climax. More grease to the Ghanaian. Hagar also says, please let all of us take our time to analyze the situation very well, if it is true or not, by using the Green Book. And Amala Omar Kabo sends another one and says, Mo Ibrahim Index had it wrong. They should come again. A country engulfed with economic hardship and the re-implementation of criminal libel law by the current government. Okay. Amowi Kobi Kanyako says, I want to ask this. What has this ranking got to do with us? We need money in our pocket, not ranking. All right. And Amala Umar Kabo, again, we are talking of bread and butter issues and Ghanaians being able to afford 3 square meals and able to pay school fees, not rankings. This doesn't put food on our table. Anthony Dazi says, this means the Better Ghana agenda is going on smoothly. God bless the NDC government. Jafar Musa says, hey, Ghanaians should thank God for giving you the kind of leaders who help you to have stable electricity. What's up, my dear country, Nigeria, where no security, no light, nothing at all. Edward Mieza, the rankings show a true reflection of how the country is being ruled by the present and past government. Ghana can gain more success if we change our character. Long live Ghana. 2 final messages. Adam Supremo first says, who knows, maybe we could have topped the ranking for the first time if the gargantuan amount of money wasn't paid to Mr. Weyobe. Neither president nor political party has Ghana at heart. God save us from the terror of politicians. Mumuni Rashid says, where do we place our current graduate unemployment? Where do we place our Weyobe scandal? And upon all these, you are ranked 7th. I guess the other African nations are performing poorly indeed. Among the blind, the one-eyed man, you mean, the one-eyed man is king. All right, so some people think that really this 7th ranking is just because we are, as you put it, comparing ourselves against dwarfs, and 5 foot could be tall, because these are the people we are measuring ourselves against, and that really, it isn't great. Some also think that it means that the government is performing brilliantly, and so one said it also means there's hope for Ghana because the indicators are pointing us in a certain direction. What do you make of all of this?
I think I perfectly agree with those who talk about the fact that there is hope and that they point us to a direction. And I have to emphasize the fact that the indicators point us to where we need to do better and where we are doing better, where we need to consolidate, and what we need to do. At least the indicators do point us to that. So for me, that's positive. We need to take the lessons in there and see how we can strive beyond where we are sitting. 7th position is good, but 7th position sitting there, as I said, is not good enough. We need to break into 2nd and 3rd. That is where we would see a change, but that will happen over time. So we need to see ourselves put in strategies to go into the first 2. So we have to come up with a plan to move from 7th to 2nd or 1st. That is what will make a difference.
I'll move over to Nana Kofi, but can you give me the top 6 and their mark? The top 6 and their general mark, and then what Ghana's general mark is, so we get an idea of what it is. Top 6 and the general maths scored right from the top.
Just a minute, I
think this is it.
You have it?
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
the top 6 we have
okay.
Mauritius,
yes,
with 82%.
82%. It's over 100.
82%.
Okay.
Cape Verde, 79. Botswana, 76. Seychelles, 73. South Africa, 71. Namibia, 70.
Okay. And Ghana counts with 66.
With 66.
Ghana counts up with 66.
So we don't even do up to 70. And we need to.
So the top 6 by University of Ghana whatever rankings or classification score A's.
Yes.
And then Ghana scores a B+.
Yes, but I must also state that
Ghana scores an A- actually.
It's an A-, but the first 5 countries,
65 to 69 is A-.
Yes. I must say that the first 5 countries listed here have consistently ranked in the top 5 for overall governance in the past 5 years.
I see.
That is why I say that governance changes are very slow.
Okay.
So if you get stuck there and you don't strategize or if you are outside and you don't strategize, these guys are not going to move for you to come in there. So you need to strategize how to become one of them. If not, you are out.
I'll get your recommendation for doing that as your final word, but let's get Nana Kofi's view, general impressions with this, and again, basically on the oil issue as well.
I would want to make a point here and then re-emphasize or re-echo what he said, that the governance issues changes over time. Creditably, we'll say that it started from 2000. So, you know, the NPP government with President Kufuor as the leader sets the pace. And I think that, you know, we should be growing over time. If your child, I'll make the point, class 1, he was 7th. Class 2, he was 7th. Class 3, 7th. Class 4, 7th. At a point, you're bound to get angry and say, hey, my guy, move on. And so that point has to be made and creditably understood. I would also want to say that, you know, for those who think that it represents some amount of hope, yes, it will be unwise for us to completely bastardize everything that has been said here. There are certain pointers in things, and I think that for those parts of the governance mechanism that are doing very well for us, for example, the judiciary, we must give them the due credit instead of, you know, trying to pull them down. For those parts that we need to pay attention to, especially the needless parts, political terror, we must, you know, pay attention as a country to some of these things. Too many arrests, too flimsy arrests. We must watch those issues and pay very critical attention to them as well. For us as a party, I think that one of the things that we want to say as well is that propaganda. Basically, well-defined, propaganda is a twisting of facts and figures, you know, whatever the issue is, to suit your cause. And as you can clearly see, it's being put out there that Ghana is the 7th best, masking all these very troublesome
But that's a factual statement, as a matter of fact.
It's factual.
Yeah.
It's factual. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we are saying is that, you know, as a country, as he has rightly said, as a researcher has rightly said, we must concentrate on those areas that there are problems, that problems are beginning to develop, so we can actually move beyond the 7th position. But if you are going to go ahead and say it's factual and so we are going to use it because it suits our cause, and then we are going to sweep the very troublesome spots under the carpet, over time, what you realize is we begin to retrogress. And that's where the issues are. For the oil, for instance, I mean, it's very clear. So figures from the Ghana Statistical Service show a decline in several subsectors of the economy. And that is very troublesome because we are actually seeing a contraction of the traditional sectors of the economy. Fisheries, for instance, I keep on going back to that fact, is declining. Production of certain food crops is also declining. That was last year. This year, we are beginning to see armyworms coming all over the place, and so the figures will be very interesting. For accountability, for instance, let's leave that for now. For accountability, for instance, there were issues, but Wereme and all of these things have not come to add to what we see here. So there are troubles there. Diversification of the economy, we are not doing very well, and that is where we are beginning to see the Dutch disease growing, and this is very, very troublesome. There's everywhere in the world where the Dutch disease has become a permanent feature of the economy, you cannot see sustainable growth. When the point was made by Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia that there's a seeming boom in the economy, and again, the point must be made that the growth figures as released by the Ghana Statistical Service,
we need to be rounding up, if you can,
you know, revised is 14.4, and you see unprecedented growth rate. It is actually not creating jobs. Certain people are actually beginning to feel the crunch of it, and when these things are mentioned, you know, government doesn't want to listen, and it's very troublesome.
Okay, let's take the recommendations from the researcher, and then we have to get out of the studio.
Thank you. I think that these indicators do matter a lot in the sense that they give us an impression of what individual citizens at large feel about how governments and non-state actors are providing services to them. Again, the index itself is useful because it makes governments aware of the shortfalls and gaps in the provision of the baskets of goods and services it's providing. Okay. There are key areas which Ghana needs to be mindful of. And 5-year analysis that show that infrastructure in particular, it's a troubling area for Ghana. We even are, we are in West Africa, we are outperformed by places like the Gambia, in Burkina Faso. So for me, we need to pay attention to infrastructure. Again, we need to look closely at what we call participation. We're known for that, and we need to pay particular attention to it so that we do better there. Again, in the area of accountability and personal safety, oil-producing countries are the worst in oil and personal safety. And so already we are showing signs of problems in oil and personal safety, and we don't need to go the lines of oil-producing countries in that area. So for me, I think these are my general conclusions for Ghana.
30 seconds, seriously, because you can see we've gone past the time. 30 seconds, I'll give you no more.
Okay, I think that, you know, our standpoint is that Ghana, we are doing well, but there's a lot more, a whole lot more that we have to do. And then second, let's begin to tell the truth. Let's stop the propaganda. Let's, look, over time, this is the development, and it's very worrying. We reached the peak at a point, and we are beginning to decline.
Okay.
We must pay attention to that.
Thank you very much. Final text messages. Christian Sam says Chia, and it's a very long EAH thing there. 7th place with this Wyoming and Sakawa performance. And then he says Mo Ibrahim Wabumpa. That's to say Mo Ibrahim doesn't seem to, I mean, the index doesn't really capture the facts. But again, this is for 2011, and you're talking about Wyoming, which broke in 2012, if I am right. Carlos de Dangaman says, God help us, for Mo Ibrahim will lose popularity if they keep coming out with camouflage data and results. Well, that's his view. Stephen Kobom says, hi, need thumbs up for the program. Tell the MPP young man that I said he's simply great. We need to see him more on shows like this. And this is from Stephen Kobom in Wa. All right. Another one comes and says, I rank Ghana based on my pocket. Let us interrogate the ranking dispassionately. That's from Peter in Tamale. And his question is, where is the NDC representative? Again, you probably joined in late. Honorable Mahama Ayarega, Deputy Minister Education, was bailed to be on the program. He was not able to make it. I don't know the reason why, but he said he would come. That's the best information I have at this moment. So we did actually try to get the NDC representative.